Hi there, I'm Elle Tyson, and I work with student support for ePortfolios and digital composition at Old Dominion University. In this video, we're going to go through some of the principles to follow when making decisions about the visual presentation for your site, namely color, font, and placement choices. Let's start with color. For color, you want to choose palettes that go together. A color palette is the main colors that will be seen throughout your site. Some things to keep in mind are that you don't want to have too many different colors, especially if you haven't intentionally chosen a palette. You can decide to stick with all cool or warm tones. Cool tones are like gray, blue, and purple, whereas warm tones are brown or beige with orange, yellow, and golden colors. You can also decide to go with monochromatic, meaning different shades of one color, or complementary colors, meaning they fall opposite on the color wheel. If this is making your head spin, don't worry. Let's look at a tool that helps walk you through some of these color decisions called Adobe Color. So this is the Adobe Color tool. It's a really fantastic tool. Even if you know a lot about color, you can still benefit from using this tool. And if you're unsure about color, it's really a lifesaver. So you can see over here some of the terms that I already talked about, like monochromatic and complementary. So it really takes the guesswork out. If you want a monochromatic website, which remember means different shades of the same color, then you can just pick monochromatic and it will apply that color harmony rule to whatever color you pick. Now, when you've applied one of the rules, basically anytime you move any of the colors, it's going to adjust all of the colors for you. So I moved these colors and it has kind of a shades of purple for the monochromatic. Now complementary means that it's on opposite sides of the color wheel. Luckily, we have the color wheel right here. So if I move some stuff, you can see it changes them just a little bit, the brightness and that kind of thing. Another really cool feature of this is that you can do extract theme. So if you have a specific photograph that you know you want to use, you can go ahead and drop that here or select it from your computer, and it's going to come up with a color palette that actually matches that picture. It's going to pull colors from that picture and let you decide which ones you want to use. So anytime you have the color wheel, you can see it down here, but I feel that this bar up here really gives you a good idea of what those colors are really going to look like kind of all together as a specific palette for your site. Now that we've looked at color, let's move on to font. Font refers to what the letters and text look like on your site. Since we were just chatting about color, let's start with making sure that if you want to use colored text, it has enough contrast. This means that the two colors are different enough from each other that you can still read the text. This is for accessibility, which not only helps those with disabilities or folks who use assistive technologies, such as screen readers, but in fact makes your site easier for anyone to read and have access to. I'm going to go back over to Adobe Color to show you one last thing it can help you with. It's called the Adobe Color Accessibility Checker. So one of the other really cool features of Adobe Color that's actually a new feature is now it has accessibility tools. What this means is that you can decide to check the contrast between your text and your background color. So as you can see right now, they're passing, but if this background was a little bit darker and this color was a little bit lighter, you can see that now it's letting you know that for 17-point font and below, this is not enough contrast between the two colors. So it's a really good tool, especially if you have kind of specific colors that you want to use. It really helps you just make adjustments so that you can make sure that everything that you're showing is legible. It gives you the code for the color that you can put right into whatever website building platform you're using. And it really just helps you to know that everything that you're putting on your site is actually legible and accessible. Okay. Now that we know how to make sure the colors don't interfere with the legibility of our text, let's talk a little more about font decisions. Besides the color of the font, you still need to make some decisions to ensure that it's easy to read. The more text you have all at once, the simpler the font should be. So a long paragraph of text should not have too many embellishments and swirls and that sort of thing. You also want to be careful about when you're using features like italics, bolding, and underlining. They should always be intentional, meaning you've thought through why a particular phrase or section needs to look different from other sections. Another important consideration is consistency. You do not want to mix too many different fonts. It may not seem like that big of a deal, but each time you switch fonts, the viewer has to do some brain work to adjust to the difference. It's a good idea to pick specific fonts for each element, as well as consistent sizing for paragraph fonts versus each heading size. So we've talked about color and font. Now let's move to something that maybe you've never even considered, the space in between. When you're making an ePortfolio, everything needs to be taken into consideration, including the empty space, sometimes called the white space. I'm saying empty space because not everyone has a white background for their ePortfolio. The first thing to know is that some space is good. You don't want your ePortfolio to be cluttered without any room to breathe. You can even use small amounts of space to show delineation or separation between sections and elements of your ePortfolio. When using spaces, you want to be consistent. You don't want some small spaces and some really big empty spaces. Another way to make sure your site is more accessible is to use container boxes behind your text, especially on textured backgrounds or if you're trying to have text over photos. You'll also want to pay attention to the differences between the desktop and mobile view. Most website creation platforms allow you to see how your site will look on mobile, but you can also pull it up on your own mobile device to test it out. You want to make different choices for the mobile version of your site versus the one on a computer if you're able to. For example, center justification is common on mobile, whereas left justification is the norm for websites that are in English for longer pieces of text. All of these decisions show that you've carefully considered how to make your site the best it can be. You can find the link to my own ePortfolio and social media accounts below. Please feel free to contact me with any questions about working on the design of your ePortfolio. And check out the rest of the videos in this series to learn even more about creating your professional brand and working on your ePortfolio. Thanks for watching today.